I see that it's 6:30, so let's call to order the regular board meeting of the Lake Bluff Park Board, May 18th, 2020. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Here.
Commissioner Lane,
Here.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh. No Walsh. President Mossberger.
Here. I get a motion to approve the agenda, please.
McHenry?
In a second.
Second.
From Paul, thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh is here also.
Walsh is here?
Walsh
Oh,
joined.
Yeah.
sorry, I see you. Okay. Thank you.
Jeff, I can't see all the numbers that have signed on. Are there any visitors that are out there? I guess I can ask that too. Speak up if you're a visitor and you would like to address the board.
Hi, this is Noelle Beckman. I'm a visitor.
Hi, Noel.
Hello. Nice to meet all of you.
Welcome.
Hi,
Noelle.
Welcome, Scott.
Howdy, Scott.
Scott's great.
There's one other
Thanks for
number,
joining.
465-1761.
All right. Verbal communication staff.
I have none.
I have none.
I have none as well.
What's next? Finance committee. That's Paul. You guys met last week, right?
We met last Thursday and had a quite extensive meeting, actually. A lot of this is going to be discussed in the COVID-19 discussion, so I don't want to repeat that. But we went over a number of the options and what we were looking at and trying to understand better the projections for the rest of the year. So we would have a better feel on the finances. And that was the gist of last Thursday's meeting. The audit has been approved, and we're going to do that. We're going to present the audit to or the auditor will present it to the board at the June regular meeting.
Okay.
But we went over that as well. So it was, as you can imagine, mainly discussing the COVID-19 issues.
Gotcha. So more to come later in the meeting.
Yeah.
Corey, anything on Parks and Beach you want to update us on?
You know, Jim, you probably do a better job of updating us. The only thing I heard was I did get a little feedback about the little wash station, but then somebody also texted me and said that you guys moved it. Was it moved today? Did you get complaints?
No, I received one complaint from a resident on Sunrise in Scranton and spoke to her on Saturday, and we took care of the wash station, and she was happy with what we took care of.
Okay, good. I heard the same complaint from another neighbor, so I'm so glad that worked out.
Yeah, we
Great.
just moved it behind the building, that little hut that we built. And, you know, if anybody has any questions, please give them my phone number, and I'll have that conversation with them so we can address any concerns.
Okay, and Jim, are the numbers, are things going well at the beach so far?
Yeah, I mean, numbers right now are pretty small due to, you know, weather related, and also, you know, how cold it's been. We had a great day on Saturday, though, thanks to Commissioner Lane, Commissioner Walsh, and Commissioner Beeler and Committee Member Russell for coming out and helping us just clean up the South Beach and part of North Beach. It looked great. hopefully nothing happened after this rain that we had on all day Sunday.
And then when, do we know yet when the sand's coming?
Until the parking lot is scheduled to get fixed. So
Okay.
I don't know if Noah has any more information on that.
Yeah, I'm working with a contractor to get the sand delivered, but we are waiting on North Shore Water Reclamation to finish their repairs of the parking lot so that the trucks can turn around and dump the sand on the beach. So we're one unit's waiting on the other unit to finish what they're doing. I've reached out to North Shore Water Reclamation, and they did not have a specific timeline as of yet from when the contractor would be doing the work.
Okay.
We are getting ready to sell the dog tags starting tomorrow, and we created a temporary dog beach area with some fencing. So Noah's team did a nice job putting that up, and we just need to get some signage labeling that that's what it is for.
All right, great. Thank you, Jim.
Great.
So Noah, do you want to talk about the meeting with Bill Weaver on Friday?
Sure. So I invited Bill Weaver to come up from AECom, who did the coastal engineering study for us. I believe it was Drew took a couple of pictures down at South along the toe of the bluff where there had been some erosion behind the armor stone, right where the toe meets the beach. And there was some concern with the erosion that had taken place there. So Bill came out, he did an initial, just kind of preliminary off the cuff assessment. But in order to proceed, he really feels that there should be a detailed analysis, taking it section by section to analyze what needs to be done. His recommendation just off the top of his head was that the armor stone should be removed and replaced, pulled back and then set again in specific places, along with some stone along the bluff face behind it. So a layer of gravel, a layer of fabric, another layer of gravel, a layer of the armor stone, and possibly a second layer of armor stone after that, depending on the needs and conditions of the toe of the bluff. It was approximate, his off-the-cuff estimate to do all this analysis was about $5,000 just for the assessment, and then the price per armor stone, if we were to install it ourselves, which we don't have the equipment to do, was relatively cheap, but the cost for a contractor to do it is about $180 a ton to move each stone. So it starts getting very expensive very quickly. So there is definitely some erosion issues. There was that section of mudslide along South that happened with the storm. So I'm not sure best course of action as of right now.
Sounds like something for your committee to tackle, Corey.
Yeah, George, do you have any comments?
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Sure.
daunting.
All right.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's a problem that's definitely not going away, right?
No.
Nope, it isn't.
Yeah.
So Noah, why don't you follow up with Corey and find a time to address that? Sounds like we
Will
need
do.
to tackle it sooner rather than later. At least the
Will
study.
do.
Great. Nikki, anything for facilities committee?
Nothing new. No, we haven't met and nothing has really happened with anything.
Okay. Friends of the Parks. I'm doubting there would be anything there. Any other commissioner comments?
Jim, I had a question about the beach. Did anybody have any difficulty? I tried to go on to renew mine and I was having trouble. Have you gotten any comments or feedback on the online for the beach passes?
Yeah, we have. We've refined it where we have an FAQ with instructions. Amy Cash is handling those phone calls as well as those emails. So we're continuously trying to work out some of those issues. It's mainly people who are brand new to Lake Bluff and never have done it before. And then the renewal, people are not reading through the whole instructions. So Amy's just circling back with them and trying to walk them through it.
I tried to do it, and then I went to the cart to add it, and then it just would bump me. So I was just curious. I just want to make sure that it's easier for people to do. It just seemed kind of difficult, and I couldn't do it. So
Emily, did you try it on your phone or on a computer?
on my iPad.
On your iPad. I wonder if that's the equivalent of being on a phone. I wasn't able to do it on my phone, but I was able to do it no problem on my computer.
Probably what it is. It's probably the server is not compatible. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah. So that's part of the problem with our current recreation software program as well. It's not doing the things that we would like it to do for the future. So we've started that process, looking into new recreation software programs that will allow us to do everything within the iPhone or an Android. So we'll have more to come on that.
Any other commissioner comments? I don't have a president's report, so on to old business. The first one's a fun one, the appointment of Scott Weber. So, Tom, how do we handle this?
So there needs to be a motion and a second. So on page 8, you'll see the motion to appoint Scott Weber to fill the board vacancy with a term ending May 2021, and request Secretary Lakeman to swear in Commissioner Weber. So we need a motion and a second.
Great. Who would like to tackle that?
I'll move to appoint Scott Weber to fill the one board vacancy, term ending May 2021.
I'll second. Walsh?
Excellent. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Scott, it was unanimous.
Yeah, that's like what I like to hear.
So now
Welcome.
Secretary Lakeman needs to read the oath of office, and then newly appointed Commissioner Weber will need to repeat that.
Okay.
So I, Scott Weber, having been appointed to the position of Commissioner of the Lake Bluff Park District, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Park District Commissioner to the best of my ability.
Okay. I, Scott Weber, having been appointed to the position of Commissioner of the Lake Bluff Park District, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Park District Commissioner to the best of my ability.
Great. Now we can officially welcome you.
Congratulations, Scott.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks everyone. Happy to be here.
We need to
Officially.
get your address. We need to get your home address because there is a little hazing that's involved.
I was concerned about that. Okay, well, at least it rained a lot, so I don't have to be picking toilet paper out of my yard.
Not bad. Great. So, Tom, he's welcome to stay on if he'd like to, right? But certainly not required for the rest of the meeting.
Well, he is now officially a commissioner, so yes, unless he has something pressing, he should be on, and he gets to vote for every issue from now on.
Does he have this packet?
Yes.
I do.
Oh, great. Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on to unfinished business. So is this where we closed down last year? So Jim, you got some work to do now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Take it away.
So as Secretary of the Lake Bluff Park District Board of Park Commissioners, I hereby declare the 2019-2020 board is now complete. There's no action.
So now let's call the new meeting to order.
As Secretary to the Board, I declare the first meeting of the 2020-2021 board now called to order. can I get a roll call? Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mossbarger,
Here.
Commissioner Walsh,
Here.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
So we have a quorum present, so we could continue on.
So can I get a motion? Can I get a motion to nominate a commissioner to be cast for the president of the board from 2020 to 2021?
I nominate Chris Mossberger for president.
I second.
Who seconded it? Emily?
Emily.
Emily,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay,
No.
could I get a roll call to close the nominations? Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mossbarger,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
All right, so next I need a roll call of the votes to declare Commissioner Mossbarger to be president of the board for 2020 and 2021 through 2021 of May of next year. So could I need to get a yes or a no. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Mossbarger.
That seems awkward. I'll just abstain.
It does. Okay. I have to ask. Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
Okay. So I declare that Commissioner Mossbarger has been duly elected to serve as president of the Board of Park Commissioners.
All right, you guys are stuck with me one more year.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Corey. It means a lot coming from you.
We'll have to celebrate together.
Yeah.
I love that idea. That'll be part of the Weber hazing, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's true.
All right, so I'd like to request a motion to nominate a commissioner for vice president of the board for 2020 and 21.
Motion.
Nobody.
Oh, I nominate Paul Green.
I second.
Any other nominations? All right, hearing none. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, so I need to close the nominations, so I'll need a roll call. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
President Mossbarger,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
So now we need to take a roll call of the votes. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Chris, what, you abstained, Chris?
I just abstained, yeah.
Yeah, I'll abstain.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry,
Yes.
President Mossberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
and Commissioner Weber.
Yes.
Excellent. So Paul, welcome as our new VP. Hope you know what you've gotten yourself into.
Thank you. Well, but now at least I get paid.
Congratulations. Right, there is a pay increase. Yeah,
Double my current pay.
100% increase over what you're making right now.
Oh,
All right, so you are assuming the duty of second in command and all that that means.
And all that that means.
Yes. All right,
Okay, thank you all.
great. Thank you, Paul. Thanks for volunteering.
I look forward to it.
So unfinished continued business F, so page 15 outlines a recap of the appointments from last year and then the recommendations for this year. There's a change there for treasurer. I think other than that, they're all the same, right, Tom?
Yes.
Like it, yeah. So,
However, since Commissioner Greenfield is the vice president, the vice president serves as the alternate treasurer. So we would want to name another position for that because he's the treasurer and he can't be the treasurer and the alternate.
right. So Paul and I talked about that earlier. So he can't be both of those?
Well, because if for some reason he leaves the board, we will be without a treasurer.
Okay. So who is on your committee? Scott then is kind of the only, is he the only
Scott.
other board member on the finance committee?
Correct.
Yes.
Scott, do you feel comfortable assuming that role?
Yes, I feel comfortable assuming that role.
Great. Okay, so let's make that modification. And with that modification, then if someone wants to make a motion to approve the recommended appointments.
Move to approve the recommended appointments with the addition of the alternate treasurer as Scott Weber.
second? McKendry?
Actually, is Scott's the treasurer or the alternate treasurer?
Alternate treasurer.
Okay, great. And there was a second, so roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Great. Thank you, everybody. On to minutes. Did anyone have any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, if I could get a motion to approve the, sorry, who was that? Emily?
I don't have a change. I did nothing. I just noticed that lifeguards it was noted that the lifeguard would start May 30th. I don't remember that, but is that something that's happening then?
No.
Okay. I was a little confused with that in the minutes.
Good catch.
Were those the April minutes or,
Yeah, April 27th.
okay.
Could have been said in the April meeting, though.
I think it says that lifeguards would start after May 30th, not on May. So it's
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah,
all right.
okay.
All right, if I could get a motion to approve the minutes of April 27th, 2020 and May 4th, 2020, please.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane, Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber.
I'll abstain because I was not present at the meeting.
Okay, President Mossberger.
Yes. All right, moving on to consent agenda. We've got invoices in here. Did anybody have any questions? There were a few that stuck out to me that were big numbers, but then they were answered as I got further into the report. So the tree removal and then the new toys leisure products, which ended up being the mom and playground.
And just to
And then it looks a
clarify, the
little
mom
different.
and playground is something that's going to be addressed once we have a little bit more clarity as of what we can or can't do at parks.
Yes.
Yeah, it certainly can't be opened yet.
Right.
Yeah, but it was something that we had budgeted this year, and Jim, those dollars were part of a referendum, is that right?
That is correct.
Kiwanis.
No, not
Kiwanis.
the Momin. Momin was part of the Kiwanis, where they
Oh, that's
donated.
Right, the Kiwanis donated 20,000 and the Lee Family Foundation also donated 20,000.
That's right. So we went ahead, bought all the equipment, and are we installing that sometime soon?
We don't anticipate installing it until the parks could open because we
Okay, fair.
don't want to put it in and then
Make it
have-
tempting.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Anyone else have any questions on anything that was in there? If not, if I could get a motion to approve the invoice schedule for ACH payments for April 2020 and the invoice schedule for the period ending May 4th and May 18th, 2020.
So moved.
Second. McHenry.
Marcia, you're up.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes,
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
I will abstain.
and President Mossberger.
Yes. All right, finance. Starting page 45, bunch of financial reports. Tom, do you want to provide just a brief summary?
Sure. As you can imagine, our revenue was basically non-existent in April. A couple of items in there for the general fund, one being the replacement tax of about 8,000, and then a Perderma rebate of approximately 11,000. Other than that, our revenue, like I said, was pretty much non-existent. Some of the expenses in April was the second week of the paid in March, but the payroll was in April, so that's how come you'll see maybe expenses being a little bit higher than what would be anticipated. We're doing financial projections. And you can see that into the year-to-date and projection area there. Obviously, the big item for us going forward right now is property taxes. The property taxes are due June the 8th. However, there was an extension of 60 days. And so we'll see how that affects the Park District.
But the extension's only for half of the payment due. So we should get a nice chunk of change in the middle of June.
We should.
Yeah.
The second due date is also extended by 60 days as well.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So you've done a little bit of modeling in here, kind of forecasting where we might be, and it's not great, but to me, it didn't look horrible.
Right. And as you can imagine, it's pretty hard because it's an ever-changing environment.
Yeah.
And especially with some programs, we're hoping to continue to offer more. I think staff is, being creative and trying to create ways to generate more revenue. We've had a great response in our camp offering so far. So we're hoping to get that rolling June the 15th.
Great.
So yeah, it could be a lot worse, but you know what? With a little bit of luck, it'll also be better.
Anyone with any particular questions on the overall finances or any of the, pages 47 through 52? Anything in there?
I just
Breakdown?
had a question, Tom. And I don't know, if it belongs here in the COVID-19 discussion, but I think what we need, I think what would really be helpful is if we could see a budget with the year-to-date numbers and then extending on to the end of the year with projections using the assumptions that we've talked about. Because I find it difficult to look at, you make some projections here. You don't talk about every fund. You make some projections, but I think overall to really look at the numbers and understand the numbers, it will really help to have it set up almost as a new budget for the year. I mean, we know year to date through April, you have a good idea what May is going to look like. June through December, we're assuming certain things, but I think if we can lay that out, it'll be a lot easier for us to look at the overall impact that we're looking at.
Sure. So you want year-to-date actual and then projections for the remaining months.
Right.
Sure. We can do that.
Well, Tom, you did this a little bit already on page 45, just kind of on like a 30,000 foot view. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, at the bottom of that page, list all your assumptions. So.
Right. So what I did was I took the actual through April, then looked at the remaining budget, and then Jim and I went through that to kind of project our revenue and expenses, and then calculated that all out. But yeah, I mean, so doing that isn't a problem, and we look at it on a regular basis. So, when this was completed last week and when it's completed next time, some of the numbers may change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, change every week.
Sure.
All right, do we need a motion to accept the financial numbers or?
Yes, please.
All right. Can I get a motion from someone to accept the financial reports?
Motion to accept report.
Second, McHenry?
Roll call, please.
Mr. Wheeler,
Yes.
Mr. Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. I doubt there's discussion on the purchase card, so if we could get a motion to ratify the payment of $10,183.39.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second, McHenry?
Roll call.
Commissioner Bueller, Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Okay, moving on to new business, board committee appointments. I'm looking at the one that's in the board packet on page 63, but Tom, I know you sent that new one by email earlier today. So did everyone get a chance to see the updated
No, I only
listing of
emailed that
committee
to you.
members? Oh, okay. So do you want to just describe, Tom, what the updates are on what everyone has in front of them?
Sure. So the changes are in the finance, administration, and future planning, adding Ms. Fisher as the citizen community member. Under facilities and programs, Commissioner Lane would be the chair. And also added is Ms. Connell Donahue as the citizen committee member. And those are the only changes from the report that you received in your board packet.
Did you also have Nikki then moving to Park and Beach?
Yes, sorry.
That's
Yes.
okay.
Commissioner Walsh is moving to the Parks and Beach Committee. Sorry.
Great. So with those changes, and I didn't get a chance to talk to all of you about the committee assignments, but is everyone okay with where they are and what the committees look like heading into the new board year?
Yeah.
Great. And how great to see so many new citizen committee members too. I think that's wonderful to have new faces, new ideas, and potentially some new board members in the future. So great to see all that involvement.
Yeah, and Taryn, are you on? Taryn, is she on this meeting? I don't know. Maybe she's here. Two great additions. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to accept all of those appointments, please.
So moved.
Second, McHenry?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. That's a great roster of folks that are signed on to help us out this year. So thanks for everyone's participation. So moving on to Blair Park asphalt bid. So we haven't looked at this for a while, and Gary's going to give us an update because we've got all the bids back, and the numbers I think are a little more favorable than what we looked at last time, especially with maybe limiting the scope of the project from where we were before. So Gary, do you want to give a little bit of an update on kind of where the numbers came in and exactly what we will be getting for our money?
Thank you very much. We originally issued this bid back in late February to be opened in early March. The thought being that trying to get early pricing would get you the best possible pricing. At that time, we were 4 days into the shutdown, and between Ron and I, we decided to hold off on actually opening the bids and extend it out to a future date. We did open this bid under the same bid package. We had a total of 11 bidders. Everybody should have received a summary of bids. They range from $184,000 up to $250,000. In my opinion, I think they're very competitive. They came at a time when there was a huge uncertainty in the contracting arena. So I think, especially with the lower bidders, they're just trying to put work on their books. I'm sure the question will be is, moving forward, are prices going to go up or down? That's a very difficult question. I'm not convinced that they would go down any less. Another factor that one may ask is where was the bid price in relationship to the oil price? I have a number of jobs out in asphalt right now, and from the material supply side, the price of asphalt has not dropped with the price of oil. Those costs are pretty fixed 6 months in advance, so that as low as oil has gone, that's not reflected in these prices. The prices are very competitive based on companies just trying to get work on the books. As we went through the two bidders, as you can see, are very, very close. I mean, in the numbers, if you compare line item to line item, one's high, one's low. So it wasn't in every case a matter of unit cost, just a little bit lower by one contractor. And when we analyze what would be best for Lake Bluff Park District, we saw a differential between All-Star and Patriot in the biggest portion of the job, which is to pulverize two of the bays, that being the bay closest to the golf course and the next bay up. That process would take the existing asphalt and completely pulverize that material. We would regrade that. Some of that material will be removed so we can retain some curb dimension, but that would give the ability to reestablish a total asphalt cross section. As the members that recall our discussions last year with the consultant, that just grinding the surface was a questionable approach, in that there was some thought that the base course, the BAM base, had deteriorated to the point where structurally it may or may not prove to be a long-term fix. At the February meeting, and we talked about getting the highest return on investment, and we talked about trying to extend whatever dollars we have so that would get out into that 18 to 20 to 22 year life cycle, as opposed to just grinding the top and putting a Band-Aid on this and being back in the same place 5 to 8 years from now. We looked at those two prices, and All-Star was at $32,000 for that item, and Patriot was at, All-Star was 138,000 and Patriot was 151,000 for that biggest item. So if we were to approach this on an a la carte basis to the benefit of the Park District and choose those items that we feel are most advantageous for the project, All-Star becomes the low qualified bidder. This whole a la carte process was looked upon to a target number of $180,000. That was discussed and kicked around. Leaders that were 150,000 and then moved up to 180,000. So with that in mind, the Excel spreadsheet that breaks down the Patriot and All-Star, comparing those two, drove the decision-making process to say that in the best interest of the district, it would be advantageous to accept All-Star's pricing with the understanding that we have also got approximately some additional work that's going to be done with concrete raising, some concrete work. There's some tactile plates to be purchased and some consulting that would add on, so that when we look at that magic number, that we needed to be in that $150,000 range. And so when we begin to look at All-Star and how we can structure it and get the biggest bang for the buck, All-Star Asphalt price would come out to be $152,532. There was an Excel spreadsheet comparison with some graphic overlays to show what areas would be done in this project, and the concepts were presented both in the number form and in that graphic presentation. I know it's difficult in the sense that it's easier if in person, but we wanted to at least give you the opportunity to say, what are we buying in each of those scenarios? And then we also wanted to make sure that as we begin to manipulate and pick that a la carte list, we're fairly giving it to the lowest qualified bidder based on getting the biggest bang for the buck for Lake Bluff Park District. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So, Gary, obviously the world is vastly different now than it was in February when we last looked at this. The process of accepting the bid puts what conditions on us? Does that mean that we're committing to spending the money by a certain time period? How long do we have to actually do the project after we accept the bid?
Well,
how does that work?
If you accept the bid, we can negotiate when the actual work would be done. I believe that once you accept the bid, you begin to commit that the Park District's going to do this, and there would be some expense involved in this. Obviously, until actual work is performed, under the issuance of a purchase order, as opposed to a contract with dates, a purchase order, it could be canceled and with minimal repercussions. But the other way to do it would be to not accept this bid and wait a period of time. I believe we could, talk with the contractor and say, hey, look, if the board wishes to defer acceptance of this bid and exercise the 60 to 90-day bid proposal period, that could be an option to the board. I think once the project is accepted, we then have to go back to the contractor and say, we're accepting you as a low bid contractor, but this project may or may not go. And are you acceptable? Are those terms acceptable? Or
Okay.
we may not do this until the fall. Are those terms acceptable? The understanding was that this project would go on someone's books. There was discussion at a point that this would be an August project. So we talk about near term versus long term, and I'm saying June or August. That was always in the discussion and always conveyed through the bid proposal, so that contractors could, or may or may not, like it, but that's the way it goes. I have to say with you right now, contractors are swamped right now because everybody's doing schools. And one of the things that we wanted to do, and one of the things that both Ron and myself and Jim and Noah have been in long discussion about, is the effects of this project on your operations. The process involved is going to be very painful in the sense of access to this facility. The total surface will be ground. It's not going to be like when you drive down a county road that's been built. It's a rough road, bumpy road, but you still drive down. This will be taken down to base, and you really don't want a lot of heavy traffic on an exposed base, so that for this 3 to 4 day process, barring any weather event, basically it's going to be closed. One of the things that we understood that we don't want to do it necessarily during your heavy season, being swimming and summer camps and the traffic that you have that happens normally during that summer period. Now, this year, that scenario is not in place, so that if one were to look at it, when what good has come as a result of this epidemic, and you were to say move ahead with this parking lot project, gosh, that's a godsend. I mean, it's a perfect time to do it. Traffic loads are minimal at the facility. Not good for revenue, not good for recreation, not good for the community, but good for rebuilding this parking lot. So,
right.
And not to further exaggerate, if in fact you begin to ramp up and you start opening up, you get into July and August, then all of a sudden we're going to tear the parking lot up. Public perception and that whole ordeal, at least in my mind, comes into play, is to say, hey, why didn't you guys do it when it was all closed? Now that we're open, now you're going to shut us down, and we're going to go from 100 we'll take out 165 parking spaces, and you only have 114 parking spaces. You'll be coming off of 176 versus off of Washington. So customer inconvenience by deferring this later into the year, assuming that things start to get back to a more normal, if post-epidemic normal is a term, might be a consideration for putting this off later than doing it sooner. But I understand the financial implications.
Right. So let me make one more comment, and then I'll open it up to other commissioners. You may all remember that in February we talked about issuing funds against future tax receipts. We had that debt service base, or whatever the right term is, Tom, that we can borrow against, and there's room there to borrow. I believe it was for next year, $400 and something thousand. So the thought was in February that we would borrow money in November against the 2021, 2, and 3 tax years, and that those dollars then would pay for the parking lot repairs and then would be held in reserve to help pay for some of the stuff at the beach. And as we heard again tonight, it sounds like we're going to have more expense down at the beach. So that being said, to do the project right now means dipping into our reserves. And we need to decide whether we should be committing right now to dip into our reserves when none of us know for sure what the next several months are going to look like. So tough decision, but that's some of the backstory. And I'll open it up now for other folks to chime in.
How long does that process take, Gary? The whole process take of doing it?
We believe it could be done in 5 working days. Now, 5 working days without an interruption due to weather. Ideally, we're talking about a June, July project. Those are typically months that we experience a minimal, normal amount of rain. When we start getting into August, this late August might be another low impact month due to weather. As I said, 5 days. If we grind today and it rained tomorrow, we might not be able to get back onto this until Thursday because we'll have to let it dry out. So weather becomes a big impact as to that duration. One of the things that we would do is to begin to forecast out and say, hey, look, next week looks like a dry week. Let's tackle it. Or we've got 3 days, a window there. If I were to look today, this week's out, and I think next week's out because I can see rain Thursday and Friday. I see rain coming next week. We would not tear up this parking lot within this window of weather forecasting. Only because we need to get it back into condition so that we can get in and get people back on it. Now, if the facility is just the golf, I think that we can do it, anytime. It's when you begin to ramp up and start bringing in other programming that and the inconvenience to your customers. But 5 days would be where we would think we could. And that's the pavement portion. We would like to do the concrete up front and have all that done, and that would not impact any vehicular traffic.
What was the plan for the golf course in terms of parking for the golfers?
Well, if the weather was halfway decent, what we would do is have those cars come in and come across the turf area and would find parking for those golfers. If the weather was quasi, come off of 176 and park down at this what is the south end, because those there are 24 cars down in that 24 spaces in that lower section that are not getting done. But my pointer doesn't work through Zoom. If you were to look at that, and that would be the section that the closest to the driving range.
Right.
So we would have to figure out a way to get golfers in off of 176, and my discussions with Ron and to some degree with Noah, it would have to be at least in my opinion, a somewhat supervised situation because, and we would have to also touch base with the local governances of 176 because of, and I can envision, and I'm not a traffic engineer, a right turn in and a right turn out, no left turn. Those types of scenarios, because we wouldn't want to all of a sudden be heading east on 176 to make a left-hand turn there, because that all of a sudden, may cause a situation that, something that we don't want. But that's how we figured we would manage that in that particular area. Try to get that section by the golf course done as quickly as possible, but understanding the pulverization process is pretty much an all, and then move on to the next process.
Well, we could also ask the school for permission to just to park in their lot too.
Correct, and then figure out how we can get golfers over to the golf course in a customer friendly manner, and also a distancing manner as well. This was, golf carts or whatever. I mean, if you want to play golf, you're going to have to hike over from that parking lot. But we'd figure something out and work on based on what our attendance projections are at that particular time, whether it be June or August. We have to, build into the plan is how do we deal with our customers in that lot during that construction process.
Yeah, Jim, who is it that we need permission to enter on 176? Is it the village or is it the police department? I mean, can we just open that up?
Yeah, so there's a street off of 176, so I don't believe we need permission to use a street.
I mean, at one point that used to be open all the time. So, I mean, that makes sense to put in, but I mean, I don't know how many people will be golfing, but that area might be good just for people going to the Park District building. And then we save the school for the golfers. That might make more sense, and keep the other space for employees. And I don't know what will be open by then, but obviously tennis and maybe paddle or pickle could be.
I think that all of those logistics are very workable. I don't know that we need to figure all that stuff out tonight. I think what we need to get a sense of tonight is how does everybody feel about moving forward with a commitment to spend $180,000 that we will likely be able to issue bonds to cover later in the year. But we're going to have to accept the bid and effectively commit to spend this money before we know for sure what that bond offering is going to look like.
I mean, at the time, if I remember correctly, at the time we had reissued the bonds. When was it? In January or February, at a big savings, and we looked at that savings and said, "This is great. This pays for the parking lot." But Chris, I'm afraid I think you're right. I think we're facing some real financial uncertainties, to say the least. And do we kind of want to keep our powder dry until we know what it's going to mean to us down the road? We've got the beach to look at, and I mean, maybe under the current circumstances, we just say, you know what, we'll put up with the parking lot the way it is for a little while longer.
This is Jennifer. I mean, Gary, Noah, or Tom, is there any liability for not doing it now? I mean, are we looking at anything that could possibly damage our own equipment or hurt somebody?
Well, I going back to sidewalks and trips and holes in the park, and those risks are always there. I mean, they don't change, and I think the circumstances, if you don't have the money, you can't fix it. But I mean, I would have to say that if you have a hole in a parking lot or a trip hazard, it becomes a potential risk. That it doesn't mean that it's imminent, but I mean, it's been there. It's something we've managed. If you had holes in the parking lot, Noah could go out and throw some asphalt in those holes and do the best you can with it, and say based on the circumstances, that's how we manage the risk. And I think Ansel Glink would, or your legal counsel would say, you've done your due diligence the best you can given the circumstances.
Can you just refresh my mind? When did we look at refinancing the debt?
So
Was that a Q4 thing?
So we
It was January,
refinanced.
February.
We refinanced at the end of February 2020 and saved approximately $186,000 on that refinancing. We were looking to issue a bond of $425,000 at the same board meeting. However, the bids for those bonds did not come back favorable, so it was rejected.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think now, you know, kind of if we were to refresh that, I mean, if I would have to imagine it would be a more favorable rate to issue debt now as opposed to 1 month ago or 2 months ago even.
The challenge is the liquidity in that market dried up a little bit, but Tom did talk to the bond advisor.
Yeah.
Do you want to give an update, Tom, on that discussion?
Sure. So I spoke to Eric Anderson last week, and he mentioned, as you can imagine, in mid-February or mid-March, when the pandemic really hit, that issuing bonds were nearly impossible. I mean, obviously, you could always issue bonds if you want to pay the rate going on. And after a couple of weeks, then municipalities were able to issue bonds at a reasonable rate. And at this point in time, we could still issue bonds at a reasonable rate. And so the question is, you know, and no one knows this answer, what happens in the future? So in other words, when we approve this and we're going to do this project or any project, and a second wave comes, does it then prohibit us from issuing bonds? So the question is, at some point in time in the next 2 or 3 months, I would imagine, should we be issuing bonds and taking advantage of the market out there that we can issue it? And right now, just on quick math, depending on if we go for a 3 or 4 year maturity, you know, we're probably going to talk somewhere between $600,000 to $800,000 on a bond issue. So it's pretty substantial, and so it would help with this parking lot and potentially at the beach or any other project, you know, that the board would deem necessary.
Did he comment on what the rates look like
compared
to?
He did? Yes. So I asked him what the rates would be, and you know, obviously he's always hesitant. I said, "Don't worry, I'm not going to hold you to it." So
right.
He thinks, based on last week's market, on a 3-year maturity, we could get 2% or less.
Great. And how soon could we issue bonds and capture money in our bank account?
So I think it's going to be at least 30 days because looking back, our last BINA hearing, we went up to 625,000. And if we want to issue more than that, we'll have to do another BINA hearing and then issue it from there. So we could do it by the end of the July meeting.
So July meeting early August, maybe you have the money.
We could have it 3 days after we close the deal.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah. But if we're going to do this then in June, we would have to start the process moving, you know, and then approve it in July.
So how do people feel about kind of going back to that original plan of funding this with the, I keep calling those tax anticipation notes, for lack of a better term, which is what we had looked at doing in February, but we paused at that time because there wasn't a market for the bonds. If there is a market now when we're being told there is, maybe a good time to capture that would allow us to get the parking lot done in depending on scheduling, Gary, maybe August, September, late August, early September. I think we all can get behind doing that parking lot, we did before. And at least doing it this way, we'd have, the money identified instead of burning some reserves. How do folks feel about that?
I just want to highlight kind of how nasty things got and kind of how they've gotten a little bit better. I'm trying to just move things here just a little bit so everyone can see my screen. If you look kind of over here, there's a big old spike up there. Can't really see it on the screen, but this is kind of like the long-term average since 2011. So, sorry, I'm trying to monitor this one. So we're kind of like below it for sure. I mean, yeah, things are still a little sparse out there, but if we can get a more favorable rate than we did before, I'm personally on board with doing this.
I think the size is going to help us too. I think we were looking at something in the $300,000 or $400,000 range before. There just aren't as many takers at that dollar amount. So the 600 to 800 that Tom's talking about, there should be more takers. And the thought again was that any money raised that isn't used on the parking lot would be then held in reserve for the beach. What's everyone thinking about that overall strategy?
And this still fits in with the with this position we have and the ability to raise this money under the given that funds are going to open up from having
the existing levy. Yeah, so we're not increasing the levy at all to issue these bonds. It's under the current cap.
It's under the current cap, the current levy amount.
Correct. So we're basically reborrowing all the debt that we've been repaying so quickly.
Right.
Corey or Nikki, any thoughts?
I actually want to ask George. I know George has really looked at the parking lot. I just have a question for George. George, do you feel comfortable with the amount of the parking lot that we're actually looking at doing?
I think that the plan that Gary developed to override the lot is a really good idea. I think it's the right approach. I don't think things are going to change from the lot perspective in 2 or 3 months.
Okay. I mean, personally, the parking lot to me is so bad. I would love to do it while it's really not being used, right before the camp start. I'd love to get it done. August with school starting, knock on wood, is a really hard time to do it, especially if programming starts with preschool. I think it could be a horrible time to do it. But you guys, Chris, I really trust you on the money part of it. And if you feel like it's irresponsible to do it now, I would say wait. But if you think it's safe enough to do it, I'd prefer to do it before camp starts and do it this month.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Corey. The only other time that I think, could work well, because I know that the park district tends to shut down like the fitness center and, various, other things at the park district, like mid to late August, in that time right before school starts, after camps are done. That seems to be like a kind of recon at the park district time. So people are kind of prepared for that. That might be another target time we could shoot for, where there could be a handful of days, and August is still one of those good, less rainy months, I think.
Emily, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, I think that doesn't the park district close for 5 days for Labor Day weekend?
For all the cleaning and stuff?
Yeah.
Is it Labor Day? Is that when it is?
I don't know exactly when.
Late August, yeah.
That's a perfect time to do it.
If the weather's good, right? 5 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Corey, the money part. I think it's kind of hard. I don't know how this, the community looks at that as spending money, but I think it's been on our plan, right, Tom, for 5 years for our budget to do the repairs. So it's something that needs to be done. It's not like a new project. So it has to be done, right? It's one of those maintenance things that we have to do. And so it's advantage to get the finances right and then the timing right. And so I think doing it when it's closed makes sense. And if we can reissue the bonds at a really low rate, then it makes sense. We're doing like two good things, right? So whatever you guys decide.
So Gary, do you think we'd be able to do it in the next month?
The parking lot,
Yes.
if the board wanted to accept these bids, I think we could get it going in the middle of June.
So camp starts, we're anticipating camps will start June the 15th. Would it be completed before June the 15th?
We could try to make that our goal. One of the things that I'm hesitant in committing, one is I would be committing to a contractor's time frame. With all this weather, is he now behind a little bit?
Yeah.
So that he could commit to it, but all his other jobs are getting pushed back a little bit. And could he say, hey, look, we're going to do it, and when we talk June 15th, we're really talking about starting it in 2 weeks.
Right. So my point being is, if we can't do it before June the 15th, then we need to hold off and do it towards the end of August, September time frame.
That's fine. That's fine. I think we can work with that. I think you and I have to look at the issuance of the bonds and then work within that 90 days. I think I can talk with All-Star Asphalt and say, hey, look, the board will make a commitment on this date. Is that okay, one way or the other? But we also would have enough of lead time so that if we're talking the end of August, we need to get it on his books so he can schedule it for the end of August, assuming he's going to have work. So I'm thinking that either late July or early August at the latest, we've got to have a purchase order to All-Star Asphalt, and whether that works with the issuance of the bonds that accomplishes Chris's concerns.
Sounds like it would.
Okay.
Tom, when are the bonds fixed? In other words, when is the issuer committed to us and unable to back out?
Well, as soon as we put it out to bid, and let's say we're going to approve it at the July meeting, the bids would come in either that day or the day before, and they would have to hold it for the day after the board meeting. Okay. Some will say you got to let us know the day of the board meeting. So once it gets approved, we would send an email and that would suffice. So basically it's a short time period, okay? Because they don't want to give us a rate today for an issue 60 days from now.
Right. So if something happens in the interim with whatever, a second wave, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty.
Correct.
And bond market takes a bad turn for us.
So what we would probably do then is in July, the board would approve a bond issue with a range. And so that once we felt that there's a good time period to issue and get competitive bids, we would do that, and then we would approve it, okay, within those parameters. So if the board said that we don't want to pay more than 2% interest, and we know that right now we can get 1.9, we would go out to bid and get that. Because it's really hard when you have a meeting once a month to try and time the market. Because you don't want to try and time it anyway, but if for some reason in July that we were going through a second wave and we thought that we wouldn't be able to issue bonds, we would then try to do it in August.
I think, Paul, you highlighted another reason, though, why we shouldn't move ahead with the project in June. Because you're right, we don't know for sure. I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we had the money, or at least had a commitment from someone to buy the bonds.
Exactly.
Before we went ahead and spent $200,000.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the point. If we sign on to the project now, then we're stuck for the 180,000.
Correct. So I think it sounds like we can all get behind doing this late August, early September, to Emily's point, maybe when the facility is shut down there for cleaning. And Gary, can you then get back to the chosen contractor and see if we can kind of let them know that we'd like to defer the decision until, or defer the formal acceptance until like early August, late July?
Well, if we can do it in your late July meeting, that would make sense.
Okay, perfect.
So we would, whatever that date is, I'll work that out with Tom.
Okay, perfect. Is everybody okay with that? Commissioner-wise?
Yep.
Yes.
So Gary, could we have them pencil us in?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, if he agrees to that, that extension, I don't see any reason why not. I don't think things are going to get that good in the contracting business where all of a sudden there's going to be a glut of work. So I think everybody is, going to not. Very few contractors are going to turn away an opportunity.
Great. All right, Gary, thanks for all your that.
Chris, the first 2 weeks of August, a lot of people go on vacation, so maybe if it could work out in the beginning of August, I think that could be a good time.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll have the bonds done by that point, but we can figure it out. Sometime August, early September, whenever in there it makes most sense. And if it goes right, we're only talking 5 days of interruption. So it's not like we're shut down for a month. We can handle 5, whatever that means.
Okay. Great.
All right, Gary, thank you.
Thank you.
Great work. I think you got us a nice deal, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks,
and
Gary.
then we'll have to get going on the bond stuff sooner rather than later, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Moving on to beach and park, the operations. Has everyone seen the proposal already, or only if we went to that committee meeting?
I think
we've all seen this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So unless someone has a great need to talk about it, let's just move to approving it. If someone would like to make that motion.
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Great. All right, so we've got virus-related stuff. Tough to plan in an uncertain time, Tom, but and there have probably been changes since you put any of this stuff together, but What did you want to highlight? I know we've got to talk about the pool, but before we get to the pool, what would you like to kind of focus on?
Right. So staff has been working really hard on putting plans together for camps. As you know, camps is a pretty large business at the Park District. We're anticipating moving to phase 3 at the end of this month. Right now, we're trending in that direction. And if we're able to do move to phase 3, we could then have gatherings of up to 10 individuals. So our camps would be, we would have 8 patrons in there and 1 to 2 staff. And we've had a great response so far. Unfortunately, we've had to limit our camp, so we can't have as much as we've had in the past, one, because of space. We need to make sure we have space available in case of severe weather. So that's what kind of dictated our numbers. And so we're hoping that we move to phase 3. We're going to then get some guidance from IDPH, that's Illinois Department of Public Health. They're supposed to then issue some guidelines, which obviously we'll follow. So then we'll have to put together some procedures with that. We're also looking to get some direction from PERMA on a few issues as well. So we're pretty excited that we get offered these camps. And along with, we're looking at if we move to phase 3 or when we move to phase 3, we could have one-on-one personal training, which we will then incorporate as well. Along with that, Mark, who is in charge of fitness, we're looking at putting together a program where we could do outside classes. Once again, up to 10 individuals. So we would have 1 instructor and 9 participants. Those classes, along with Zoom fitness classes, we were going to offer for $30 a month for unlimited usage and see how many individuals we get to sign up for that. Because as you know, we're not charging our fitness members anything right now until we get open the fitness center, which at this point in time, we don't know when that will be. Now, that could be phase 4, which potentially could be towards the end of June. But once again, there's going to be limitations on that as far as how many people we could have up there. And once again, they haven't decided what that number is or what those guidelines are. And so I would envision when we move to phase 4 for the fitness center, it would be a limited number of fitness members that could go up there. So, you know, we're pretty excited that we're anticipating to offer programs to the residents. And, you know, hopefully we'll continue to trend towards phase 3.
And I think all the moms and dads out there are going to love us for holding summer camp. I think they're dying to get the kids involved in something. So I think that's great that we've, you know, that we're pretty much there and figuring out a way to do it. So I think that's great. And again, you're getting more information every week or sometimes, you know, new stuff every day. So, you know, this will change, but hopefully it continues to trend positive.
Right.
And so for the pool, I know that you guys talked about this at, did you talk about this at the finance meeting?
We did, yes.
You did, right? Yeah.
We did.
So is finance making a recommendation, or is that staff recommending we don't open it?
Well, staff both, really. Staff recommended it, but it seems that, I mean, to us, I think we felt that the uncertainty over what the guidelines would be, even if we get to where you can have 50 people in the pool, number one, it's very difficult to limit. that's stage 4. We don't know when stage 4 is going to start. Limiting it to 50 people is not easy, and social distancing with 50 kids in a swimming pool is beyond impossible. So
Yeah, and the issue with lifeguards, we don't know what those guidelines are going to look like.
And, and
there's a lot that would
right, the safety of the staff, the safety of the lifeguards, if they have to get into close contact. I mean, they're there if needed. You hope they're not needed, but if needed to, start grabbing kids and so on.
Right.
And it sounded to us that it was just so uncertain, and uncertain even from a state guideline point of view, what they're going to allow. And so pardon?
Sorry, go ahead. No, I didn't know you were still going.
No, and so we were behind the staff recommendation. And Tom, you can talk more about this, obviously.
Sure. Well, first of all, staff didn't take this lightly. This is, it pains me to make this recommendation, to be honest with you, to close such an important feature of the park district. And so part of the issues is the safety of the staff in case they have to do a rescue. And how do you keep that 6-foot distancing in there? So that was one, concern. The second is, I've seen some proposals, some recommendations out there that when you swim, you shouldn't wear a mask. Okay. And so then, even though one report I saw that chlorine will kill the virus, but as you're swimming and you go under, you come up, you kind of spit out, where is that going airborne, and how are we protecting our staff and other patrons for that? And so that's a major concern, is the safety. And that's really the premise behind this recommendation, is safety.
What's the urgency to make the decision tonight?
The urgency is to let the community know about the pool. I mean, yes, we could always hold off that decision, but it's going to take us approximately 2.5 weeks of staff time to open a pool, the 2 pools up there. So our next meeting is June 22nd. And so if that point in time we decide to open, we're talking, the second week of July, assuming that we're in phase 4. At some point in time, does it become, financially feasible for us to open up?
Or are there, allotments in phase 3? Like they're now talking about, possibly restaurants may be able to open in phase 3, and they weren't saying that before. Like, I just feel like it's such a changing atmosphere. We've had so many special meetings called lately that this is such a big decision. I would love to see us wait a couple of weeks before we make a decision like this that impacts the whole summer and a lot of people.
We could always do that.
So I think, Tom, didn't we talk about potentially changing the committee of the whole meeting in early June to a special board meeting?
Yes.
So if we did that, maybe we table this for 2 weeks and see if more direction comes out.
Sure.
And then we can look at it at that point.
Sure.
Okay.
Now, Tom, you've noted here, though, that if the pool opened with restrictions, and I assume you're referring to stage 4 restrictions.
Yes.
When you say that we'd end up with a net loss of over $154,000.
Yes.
So, I think that's something else we have to take into consideration. We're going to lose at least 100, opening up the pool by June 15th. We're going to lose more than $100,000
So I don't have anything, I see that, but I don't have anything to back that up. Did we look at other revenue streams, like a lot of the swim clubs that are out of pools and, other options that, people that could be bringing in small groups of 10 or under, at odd times of the day, and also, other events and things that could be hosted? Did we look at swim lessons being still included in that, because those are generally small group or could be done as privates? I'm just curious what all was looked at in that number.
So with swim teams, I don't believe that swim teams would be eligible, because unless things change, because youth athletics cannot run in the summertime. And if you consider swim teams to be athletics, then, and I don't know for sure how the state qualifies that, we wouldn't have that ability. And as far as, swim lessons, one of our concerns, once again, is the distancing. Maybe staff could put together a plan to somehow keep their distance and give swim lessons.
And so as far as youth athletics, I know USA Swimming is its separate own organization. I know they're helping pools, publish information now. There's pools in a lot of states that currently have swim teams practicing, one person per lane. There's various things going on in a number of states already.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could be something that's possible. All I'm looking to do is table it. I think there's a lot, and I'd love to see kind of the numbers behind the financials, because yes, that's a huge number. Right. For sure.
So, we could definitely table it. I'm not opposed to that. And then we could discuss it June the 1st as well, and see what additional information we have at that point in time.
Let's do that. And then Tom, maybe, during the 2 weeks, if you could provide a little more substance to those numbers, so we can see what generates the additional 105,000 loss if we open. I'm guessing it's the personnel, but be curious to see it.
Okay.
But I agree with Paul. I mean, that helps to make the decision. If we,
for sure,
if it truly is $154,000 loss, if we open it in the middle of June, then that might make the decision for us. But it'd be great to see a little more detail there.
Okay.
All right.
I just want to share this information it was given to me by a nursing friend from the CDC, that they have guidance for reopening aquatic venues. It's a webinar that was done by a nurse. I haven't watched it yet, but there's guidance out there for reopening that we really need to research. I have it on my to-do list, but they haven't sent me the webinar yet. But and this is by CDC, so I don't know if you guys want to look into that too. The CDC posted, again, it's COVID-19 guidance for reopening aquatic venues.
Yeah, I'm actually on the CDC website right now, just kind of looking at, pool rules, and, it's kind of nebulous, right? They're saying everyone should follow local and state guidelines that may determine when and how recreational water facilities may operate. So they're kind of washing their hands,
Yeah.
With chlorine.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Of any real guidance. So, Nikki, I'm totally on board with, kind of pushing this back, if into the June meeting. Hopefully by that point we're on phase 3. And once we're at phase 3, then the, legislature actually has to think about what phase 4 then looks like, right? And so you would think that pools would be part of, a modified phase 3 or phase 4. So maybe we'll get more guidance in 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so no action on that tonight, Tom. We'll just table it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we need a motion from someone. That's it.
One other point on the COVID-19. We talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting, but I don't know that anything has been announced about Bluffinia.
I've heard nothing.
again, we were looking at that, and given the guidelines that we have, even in stage 4, it would seem that Lafinia we
Would
should
be a
just-
no-go.
Yeah, it'll be a no-go, and we ought to tell people it'll be a no-go.
I think that's a good idea. Hadn't even thought about that.
Okay.
So Tom or Jim, can we put something out on
Yes.
Facebook or whatever, notifying folks?
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Paul. That's a good idea. Okay, so now we'll skip the communication stuff and move into executive session. So, Nikki, do you want to read the?
Yeah, I'd like to move we go into executive session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of an employee pursuant to Section 2C1 of the Open Meetings Act.
Excellent. A second, please.
Second.
Marcia, do we need to roll call or anything?
We do. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes.
Chris, can you, before we hang up, can you make sure you send me an invite for executive session? I can't find it in my packet.
I can't find mine either.
Yeah, I don't know. Did we not get it? Because it's not on the front page.
It's in the executive session envelope.
I don't have anything in my executive session envelope.
Should be a whole packet. It's the executive director agreement.
Oh, I do. I'm sorry. Okay. It's okay.
All right, let me go look in the other room. Maybe I didn't see that packet. If I don't get on, just send it to me, okay?
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Sounds good. See you guys in a minute.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Nice headset.
So now we just need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, Tom?
Yes.
I move
Motion to
to adjourn
adjourn.
the regular meeting.
Second.
And all in favor? That's a voice vote too, right?
Yes.
Aye.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Sorry, Scott, that was a marathon meeting on your first one. They all don't go that long.
That's all right. Lots to discuss.
Lots going on, yeah. All
Welcome
right,
to
thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good luck, Jennifer.
Good night, all.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.